I am here tonight on behalf of the Pennsylvania School Board Association to honor a few school board directors for their years of service and dedication to the school district. School board service has long been a crucial part of our nation's legacy, and it's a commitment to public education. As the first school boards association in the United States, PSBA has a rich history with more than 125 years of service. The consummate school directors are described as ethical, principled individuals with a deep desire to serve. They believe in the value of our public schools and the local control of public education for the benefit of all students. Today, school districts are expected to offer more services along with world-class instruction with limited resources. These expectations provide tremendous challenge for school directors, unpaid volunteers who give of their time to contribute to the schools and communities they serve. Schools' continued effort to provide high-quality, continuous education to all students during the pandemic further highlights the key role school directors play in educating our children. For more than 35 years, the PSBA has been recognizing the contributions of the dedicated school directors with long-term service. The honor roll is the association's way of thanking those individuals who've exemplified leadership by giving of themselves unselfishly for their time and talents for the betterment of public schools, serving the students across this great Commonwealth. It gives me immense pleasure, and I mean that sincerely, to recognize the following for being part of this rich legacy. Would Madam Vice Chair Julia Tamarki Kukuro please come forward? The PSBA provides a little certificate in recognition, having served for 8 years on the board. So, Julia, thank you very much. I think somebody wants to take our picture, so bring it up. Okay. All right. Very good. Congratulations, Julia. Now, this next one is going to be a little difficult. I had thought about folding it up in an airplane and into a paper airplane to launch it for Tom Harley, but he was the other person who has served 8 years. Actually, I think he's 8 years and about 3 months, and I'll present it to Tom at the next board meeting, but congratulations as well, Tom. Okay. Public comment. Who do we have signed up for public comment, Jim?
There is none tonight, sir.
Okay, thank you. I understand, is there a Miss Kendi Kunkel in the audience tonight? No. Okay. We have an SGA member that's been assigned to the board. As you all know, we have historically had usually a senior from the high school act as a board representative for the school, and that is Miss Kendi Kunkel. So
we received an email late this afternoon that she was not going to be able to attend tonight, that she's going to try to come on October 25th.
Very good. We'll look forward to meeting her then. Okay. Solicitor's report. I don't think we have a solicitor's report, so we can move on to section 3, approval of the minutes and the agenda. Julia's moved in second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, Uta was not able to attend the ICTC here this last meeting. I, as the alternate, stood in for her. Things are rolling right along up there. They have kind of the same issues that we all do in dealing with some of the COVID restrictions. But right now they seem to be having some issues with keeping all of their staff. And one of the people that has recently resigned was their payroll clerk. And they've asked the Indiana School District to kind of support them in that. Jared, if you would, please brief the board and the community how we're going to help them out on that.
Yes, sir. We do wish the retiree from ICTC happy retirement and thank her for her many years of service to the ICTC and the sending districts. But she retired a week ago. And at the time of her announcement, ICTC reached out to all sending districts to see if anybody could help them just kind of through the transition. As their business manager has been in there for a couple years now, but is still learning. She needed some help with some PSERS reporting as well as payroll. Indiana is lucky to have a payroll person, an excellent payroll person with many years of both payroll experience and PSERS reporting. Has worked excellent through the transition to the new PSERS, retiree options, all those type of things. So she does an excellent job for us. So she will be going up. She's already been up to ICTC, I think one day last week for a couple hours. She was up there today. And she's going to help them with both their PSERS reporting as well as probably payroll as we kind of get a feel for what they can do on themselves and what we can help them out with. I feel very confident that what our payroll person can do for them will help them, as she does an excellent job for us. So we may be coming back to the board at some point here, just if we get in the position where our person has to work outside of her normal day. And if we need to bill ICTC for some of that time, then we may come back to the board for approval of setting a rate and billing ICTC for that at some point here. But they're still kind of working out what the relationship's going to look like, how often she may need to go up there. It does work out well for us that our payroll dates and their payroll dates are a week different. So we're not both preparing payrolls in the exact same week, which makes it kind of a nicer, easier transition and schedule for our payroll person here at Indiana.
Okay, Jared, thank you. Questions on the board?
So this time that she's spending now, is there going to be some compensation for it?
That's where once we kind of get a better idea of what that may look like in the amount of time, even if she isn't having to work outside of her normal day, as a board, you could approve billing them for that time, regardless if she receives additional compensation out of her normal day.
I
So
just heard initially the outside of her day, but so we will look at it also.
yes, yep. And then we'll bring that back, like I said, once we get a better idea of how much time she needs to spend up there, what that rate may look like and stuff.
Okay, Barb, what's going on over at Aaron?
Well, the last meeting was on a special date, not our normal time, so unfortunately I couldn't make it. But looking at the fact sheet, there wasn't too much earth moving motions. One of the things that they were talking about, Aaron, that they were excited was through the American Rescue Plan, they got some money for the homeless children and youth in the amount of $372,964, and so they're looking forward to help out the children in our district. And there were some updates to some policies about virtual meetings and the health and update to health and safety plan to reflect some mandates. And that's about it.
Okay, thanks, Barb. Tom, are you able to give us a committee report and take care of these motions for us?
I think so. I'll start off with the committee report. Let me see if I can find the right form. There we go. We met on the 4th. We had a long review. Rob went on and on and on about the graduation requirements. There was a really good discussion, and we understood our limits on our opportunities a lot better. Looking forward to rolling out the dual enrollment portion of this. Still working on it. It's a work in progress, but tremendous effort has been made by the administration and the faculty to make this a reality. We had a request for replacing our high jump pit and a pole vaulting pit at substantial money. We all were a little surprised at that. How much padding costs, but it's on the table to bring back and figure out what to do with it. We talked about lacrosse. Lacrosse has about, I think it's about 70 people, Rob. I think that was about it.
Yes.
Boys and girls they're running a full team of Indiana students now. They're playing a full schedule. They would like a lot of help, um, and they would like to be fully funded was their request. But the committee is struggling to figure out how to do that, and so there'll be more discussion of that. We reviewed the COVID testing policies. I believe we have a program that's coming in place for individual testing. It must be approved by the parent, and it would shorten a quarantine time. So that's why we're working on that, and our health professionals in our schools will be administering those tests. We also talked about the theater, both the junior high and the high school. Got the musical shutdown, which are the prime fundraisers, which funds the royalties and other things for the upcoming year. And so they're basically starting out in the hole, and I think the committee would recommend that we look at doing some fair funding to make those operations whole again. We also had a really good presentation by the Summer Acceleration Program and the MTSS team about the, I don't know how else to describe this, the massive success of that summer school program. The students did extremely well. We learned a lot. I was glad to hear that it was funded for next year, and moving ahead with that. And that was it. It was a real short meeting, and we got a lot accomplished. On the motions, is there anything that needs to be removed? Or can I take them all at the same time? Okay.
Nobody's frantically waving their hand at this point, Tom, so I think you can take them all.
I can't see that, so you just have to, I'll just charge ahead here. I move that 5.2 YMCA lifeguard agreement, 5.3 graduation requirements, 5.4 behavioral intervention specialist, 5.5 IUP collaboration project, 5.6 COVID testing option for PA schools, 5.7 musical play fees, all be approved as submitted.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Questions, comments, or discussion from the board on these items? Rob, you got your finger on the switch there. Anything you'd like to add?
I was just standing by ready to answer any questions that may be sent my way, sir.
Okay, nothing heard. All those in favor of 5.2 through 5.7 inclusively, please say aye. Those opposed? Motion's carried. Cinda, policy and personnel, what happened this evening?
Okay, we had a policy and personnel meeting this evening before the executive session. We had two main agenda items. One was bond refinancing, which I'm going to ask Jared and Julia to talk about. And then the other item was a first read on two policies that we'll be approving tonight. The bond refinancing, Jared, can you give the community a little bit of an idea what's going on with that, how it's going to work, and what it will save us?
Yeah, absolutely. We have previously discussed this at the September, or actually I believe the August Audit and Finance Committee meeting as a possibility. What happened after the board approved the PFM, our financial advisors, to move forward with that? They did a kind of a bidding process to do a refinancing of our 2016 bonds, which have become callable because they are now 5 years old. So they did the bidding. The low bidder came in, was First Commonwealth. So instead of having bonds, we will now have a bank loan through First Commonwealth, which what we're doing is borrowing the money from First Commonwealth to pay off the bondholders who originally bought the bonds 5 years ago. So we are not borrowing additional money. It is an even swap for borrowing money to pay off another older loan. But as part of that, we are able to recognize a lower interest rate on that old money or that old lending that we did 5 years ago. So we are saving $1.3 million in interest over the life of the loan, which extends the debt out for the exact same period of time that the original bonds put in place in 2016. But again, recognizing savings of $1.3 million in interest because of the excellent interest rate that First Commonwealth agreed to give us as part of the loan agreement. So, and again, no new money is being borrowed as part of the refinancing. It's just to pay off old debt and lower that interest rate on the debt that we have.
And so does the fee that PFM charges that's not included in the 1.3 million, or so it's 1.3 million savings after all the fees?
After all, yep, after that's a net savings after all the fees to the financial advisors, the solicitors who review, the bond counsel who helps work through all the legal documents that need to be signed. So that is, yes, a net savings. Yep.
And to put it in an annual basis, Jared, for about the first 8 or 10 years, it's running a little over $100,000 a year in interest savings, and then it goes down into the 60s and 70s for the balance. Is that essentially correct?
Yep, that's correct, sir. For the first initial 6 or 7 years, it's right around 100,000. It lowers our annual debt payment, and then for the remaining probably 8 or 9 years, it is around $70,000 in savings per year.
So it helps our total outstanding debt as well. And from when we first started to talk about this to now, the savings have continued to increase.
Yeah, the original projection from back in August was right around a $500,000. And they, even at the time, were very conservative with their estimate. So I think even bond counsel and the financial advisors were pretty shocked when the rate came in. I could tell from the flurry of emails I got as soon as we got it, trying to get the paperwork done and making sure that we were approving this as soon as possible. So
Quick before they changed it.
yes, they were very pleased with the results as well. So
The new bank loan interest rate is 1.75%. Do you happen to know what the 2016 bond rate was?
it would have been
Just curious.
yeah, I mean, the way bonds work is there's bonds you pay off every single year. So there is no flat rate on those bonds. Each bond would have a different interest rate to it. So I would say on average, we were probably in the 2% range somewhere.
2.5 according to page
2.5?
4.
Yeah.
We were paying out.
Yeah, as you can see, the old ones, was anywhere from 2.5 to 3.25, where the interest rates on the bonds, again, the overall lending was almost 10 million, but those are all kind of broken out into individual bonds that mature over the life of the debt.
Okay, anything else? Okay, so we kind of have that discussion. So we can go on with the motions for this section. Is there any motion between 6.2 and 6.9 that anybody wants to pull out? Okay, not hearing anything. I move that we take motion 6.2, support mentor teachers, 6.3, leaves of absences, 6.4, resignation of professional personnel, 6.5, long-term substitute assignment, 6.6, employment of support staff, 6.7, resignation of support staff, 6.8, board policies, and 6.9, appointment of literacy grade level lead teacher.
Okay, moved in second. Questions, comments, discussion on 6.2 through 6.9 inclusive? Nothing heard. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, Terry, it looks like it's your turn. Buildings and grounds.
Okay, thank you. We did have a meeting on September 30th. It was a special meeting on a Thursday night. Two topics on the agenda. The one was the feedback from Strategy Solutions and Mr. Rodney Green on community stakeholders input. and some outreach that they had done. And then the second topic was reviewing of the 4 options of the grade configuration. And basically after looking at the cost and looking at sketches and some discussion, and then Buchard Horn, our architect of record, also presented their findings and cost projections on the 4 options. And then the committee went through some more debate, and then we had asked the administration now to vet out the 2 main possibilities and report back. Hopefully is that going to be presented at next week's meeting?
No.
No, it'll be the
Yeah,
following.
we'll need some additional time to
Yeah.
vet out those 2 options.
Okay. All right. Moving on to the motions that are in the agenda, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4. Anybody have any interest in doing those separately? Or and I'd like to make a motion then. 7.2, East Pike HVAC study. 7.3 is an architect proposal, and 7.4 is mechanical work for East Pike roof replacement.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Questions, comments, or discussion on these 3 motions?
The 7.2, just CJL is a specialized engineering firm that deals in HVAC systems. So they are being hired to look at replacement options for the HVAC on the admin wing here, and then also the old East Pike office. And the administration has come up with a game plan of what they are proposing to use the old East Pike office in the rear of this building for. 2 specialty classrooms. One would be an autism room where the nurse's station used to be. There's restroom and shower facilities already in that area, and then a print room. So it'll give them 2 additional classrooms and then the print room.
Okay, Terry, the only thing I do want to comment on, and maybe I'll defer to Tom, is on the HVAC study. There's some, there's traditional ways in which they provided HVAC, and there's some other ways that we think may be better, that may save us dollars in the future of our operating costs. And that's why we're trying to figure out which is the better way to go. Tom, do you have anything to add to that?
No, Walter, Terry and I and the administration reviewed it with the CJL pretty extensively and talked about a bunch of opportunities that exist. So I'm looking forward to seeing what their study shows up with.
And that hopefully will have the results of their study at the November 15th Building and Grounds meeting. And they'll come back to us with at least 3 options, different types of systems, the conventional, the split systems, and then we're also having them looking at a geothermal option. There's been discussion of possibility of using that type of system before. We've never had, this may be an opportunity to do it since we have 2 smaller areas, this admin wing and then the old office space. Could be I don't want to call it a pilot project, but it could be a chance to maybe use it. So hopefully they, it'll definitely be one of the options they come back to us.
But that's the purpose of doing the energy modeling, trying to figure out which system will give us the best bang for our buck.
But I'm not sure that this study we'll wait and see what the study results are, but I'm not sure that we may have to do a little bit more in-depth modeling.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or discussion on 7.2 through 7.4? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's carry. Okay, Julia, your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Schroth. We did not have a committee meeting tonight, but the next committee meeting will be October 25th, correct, Jared?
Mhm.
Okay. I have some comments, but I'm going to make the first motion that based on the recommendation of the administration that the current bills be approved as submitted.
Okay, go ahead.
Walter, I just have a few comments. This was the bills to be paid in October, about a little over $6 million. So there's some big items in there, Jared, that you might want to just mention. But I'm particularly interested in the charter cyber, how you run those bills through the system, and what can we expect on an ongoing basis?
Absolutely. We are billed on a monthly basis from any of the cyber charter schools within Pennsylvania that take our students. So, it can be one student in a cyber charter school, or there's a couple seem to be very popular ones where we have multiple kids, but we are billed on a monthly basis based on enrollment and the number of days that the kids attend in that month. So we pay those fairly quickly, only because there's a system in place with PDE that if the charter schools don't get their money in a certain amount of time, then they can appeal directly to PDE and have their payment withheld from our state subsidy. So when we get those bills, we have a staff member here at the admin who goes through them, double checks that all the students on those bills are actually Indiana students with a valid Indiana address. And at times, if we don't feel that that student may be living in our district, we have gone through and audited, called the parent. Actually, I've been on a couple of home visits as well to make sure, knocked on doors to make sure that the student is actually living at that residence. So it's we have a good system in place to verify that the bills are actually valid. And then there is a reconciliation at the end that, if they do have a student on there who maybe withdrew or they have wrong dates, at the end of every year, we then reconcile those with the cyber charter school. And they've all been, worked well with us on either giving us a credit or, they'll certainly bill us more if they need to.
Okay.
Anything else?
And I think some of it, maybe a couple of those other big things on here are really some payroll items, as well as one of the bills on here, or there's actually three separate ones, is we paid our quarterly PSERS bill, which was well over $2 million. That was for the months of April, May, and June. So the quarterly bills are usually due then, that we withhold for those 3 months, or actually those were the employer side of those payments. They are due 3 months after the end of the quarter. So we got that in before the end of September. For cash flow purposes, we hold on to it as long as possible.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Cinda.
I have a question, and if now's not the appropriate time, just I'll do it later. Do you happen to know, Jared, how many students we have in outside cyber schools? Do you have a number?
The last time that I looked, we were in the 50s, 60s range for number of students. We, of course, last year during COVID saw a slight uptick in that number. But we, for at least at this point in the school year, which that number can fluctuate a good bit from even month to month, but we did recognize a small decrease over last year at this point in the year in our enrollment, but it's right around within the 50s or 60s.
Okay.
And
Thank
what's
you.
that cost them?
It's probably going to cost us a little over $1 million.
Yeah, so some of those bills went through, and I just wanted to point that out, because I think some people aren't clear on how these cyber charter schools have their tuition paid. It's coming out of our district. We do get state subsidy, but it's a big item, big budget item.
So is there state subsidy specifically for cyber schools?
I think so.
No,
No, okay.
there used to be help in paying that, but the state stopped that probably off the top of my head, 2008, 2009 was the last time that they help reimburse us for those cyber costs.
And then is the 50-ish that we're seeing similar to pre-COVID times?
It's still a slight uptick, but we have seen, we're in my opinion, we're starting to see the real effects of the IDEAL program, which was put into place years ago, where those kids who were in elementary school or at the elementary level in cyber school are starting to graduate. So our bigger classes of 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders who were in cyber are now graduating. And we are seeing some smaller numbers in the elementary levels within cyber schools. So, it really has, I think, it's hard to get those kids back once they're gone. And, those bigger classes that were gone even before we started our own school are now graduating and moving on. So we're seeing really the investment pay off at this point with Ideal.
Well, and I mean, we're doing a lot of blended and they get really the best of both worlds with coming here. So I think that was an excellent,
That was, Tamara, one of the surprises that when we started down that road, initially it was to try to reduce that cyber bill. But that was one of the pleasant surprises we discovered, was that the blended programs actually, there's a lot more participation and a lot more bang for the buck out of that program than we actually saw in the reduction of the students and the cybers.
And we also saw an uptick in the number of home schooled children due to COVID. It almost doubled from
Correct, sir.
what I heard from talking with a niece. And then my question is, does that impact our budget? The number of homeschoolers that we have?
We don't, their homeschool kids can participate in some extracurricular activities, but as far as there's no money that goes out of the district for homeschooled kids. We have some responsibility for them to track their education. The parents are required to submit information to us every year. But that number pretty much stayed steady. We didn't see a decrease in that going into this school year like we did our cyber kids. It seemed that those kids who went homeschooled last year pretty much remained.
Yeah. And so we don't get subsidies for homeschooled either then? There's no plus or minus.
There is no plus
basically.
or minus. No.
Okay. All right. Just curious. Thank you.
I mean, in the end, it could affect our subsidy a little bit because they're not included in our enrollment numbers as a homeschooled kid. So we don't report them as, a kid being educated by Indiana, which the new basic ed funding formula does take into account enrollment. But we also don't have expenditures for them either.
I was going to point out that every dollar of public school education is accounted for 3 different ways: through your budgeting process, our outside auditors, and the reports that you give the board. So there's a lot of oversight over the public budgets and public schools, and our district is certainly no exception. My concern about charter schools, we're paying for it, but we have very little real idea of how their finances work, sometimes even how many teachers they employ. So, I think that this needs to be straightened out on the state level, but I think the taxpayers should know that that's costing them about $1 million a year to fund this process. So, thank you.
Okay. Further, Cindy, did you have anything? Further questions, comments, or discussion on 8.2? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Jewel, the last one.
I move that in accordance with the recommendation of our bond counsel and financial advisor, the resolution to incur debt in connection with the refinancing of the 2016 bonds that are being used for various capital projects be approved as presented.
Okay. Go ahead.
I would just like to say that once again, that there was a question during the committee meeting tonight. This was a new loan. What's happening is we're paying off, as Walter said, we're paying off this 2016 bonds and we're refinancing through the bank at a lower rate. So it's resulted in more savings than what we thought we would get, and we're delighted about it. And the full committee agrees that we should do this issuance.
Okay, further questions, comments, or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carry. Okay, we're down to closing. We have no discussion item. 9.2, public comment on agenda items. Anybody have comment on agenda items?
I would just like to thank Mrs. Barb Padel for her many, many years of service. She submitted her retirement, her intentions to retire in January, and I would just like to thank her for her long and distinguished career and service to this district.
Absolutely, Rob. Okay, we had some enclosures. We also had an executive session at 6:30. We discussed real estate and contract issues. Our next board meeting will be October the 25th. to discuss general purpose items. Our next committee meetings are Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation next Monday night at 5:30, and Audit and Finance on the 25th, also at 5:30. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.